poised to play a key role in strengthening maritime governance in Africa, particularly in promoting infrastructure development and enhancing trade. Established 49 and a half years ago in May 1975, MOCA is an intergovernmental organization dedicated to coordinating and developing maritime activities in West and Central Africa with a focus on fostering cooperation, improving safety, security, capacity building, and developing maritime infrastructure. How have we been doing this in the last 49 and a half years? Like I said, MOCA serves as a unifying body for 25 countries, which are connected by common maritime interests. By providing a platform for collaboration, MOCA enables member states to harmonize maritime policies, laws, and regulations. This alignment reduces trade barriers, facilitates efficient customs procedures, and improves cross-border transportation, helping African ports operate more efficiently and attract global trade. MOCA is set in a mutually collaborative manner to take the lead in bringing Africa together as one strong continental body under the Africa Maritime Organization in order to advance the maritime interest of Africa, support and complement the work of the IMO in similar fashion to the European Maritime Safety Agency, EMSA. MOCA's two strategic and fundamental goals are reflective and resonate at the core of Africa's maritime interests, and these are provision of a platform for intergovernmental cooperation in maritime and transport, and two, addressing common problems, challenges for shipping services, safety and environmental protection. Other important Africa's maritime interests and objectives derive from these two strategic objectives. The transition of MOCA through collaboration with stakeholders such as MOESNA to an African maritime organization will enhance the effectiveness of maritime operations in Africa, fostering unity, sustainability, technological support, partnership, and development across the continent. In an expanded scope, the Africa Maritime Organization would signify a broader mission encompassing the entire continent. This inclusivity can enhance cooperation among all African nations, thereby maximizing resources and efforts. The move to establish this entity will enable member states to collaborate more effectively on maritime issues, addressing challenges such as piracy, illegal fishing, environmental protection collaboratively. By so doing, Africa's relation with multilateral organizations will be more respectful and mutually beneficial. Facilitating infrastructural development. Through advocacy and support for investment, MOCA and its partner organizations such as this AMA, MOESNA, will encourage infrastructure development to modernize ports and improve logistical connectivity. This will help coordinate regional initiatives that secure funding from international bodies, including but not limited to the Africa Development Bank, the European Union, AFCTA, Afrexim Bank, and the International Maritime Organization. This support allows member states to invest in modernizing port facilities, expanding cargo handling capabilities, and implementing advanced technologies for port management, which are crucial for reducing congestion and lowering trade costs. The launch of the Regional Maritime Bank by MOCA early next year is aimed at addressing financing for maritime infrastructure. Addressing maritime security and safety. Like I indicated earlier, security threats such as piracy and illegal fishing are major issues in West and Central African states, and they impact trade and economic development. MOCA as an organization has collaborated with its member states to improve maritime security by enhancing the capabilities of their coast guards, promoting information sharing, and establishing early warning systems. The organization also supports the implementation of the Djibouti Code of Conduct, the Lomé Charter, ICC Code of Conduct in Yaoundé, which all aim to combat maritime crime and enhance security in African waters. Building human capacity in the maritime sector. We place significant emphasis on developing skilled human resources within the maritime sector. MOCA supports training programs and capacity building initiatives in areas like maritime law, port management, and logistics. The collaboration with institutions and international partners, MOCA has helped its member countries cultivate a skilled workforce that can effectively manage modernized port infrastructure, conduct trade operations, and enforce government policies. Let me emphasize that as of today, we have two academic institutions similar to the World Maritime University. These are the Regional Maritime University located in Accra, Ghana, and the Regional Academy of Marine Sciences and Technologies in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. These two institutions serve the useful purpose of building manpower for the sector. In expanded scope, the Africa Maritime Organization will signify a broader mission encompassing the entire continent. This inclusivity can enhance cooperation among all African nations, thereby maximizing resources and efforts. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for want of time, I will surmise by saying that we at MOCA, working with our partners, Moesna, AMA, and the AU, are poised to work towards the establishment of a continental maritime entity that will promote the interest of Africa, largely to complement the work of the International Maritime Organization. The European Maritime Safety Agency is doing this. Why not Africa? As of today, MOCA has received notification from Nigeria that is contesting for Category C. As a united voice in Africa, I know Kenya is already there. As a continental body, the African Maritime Organization, we will have a stronger voice when African nations such as Nigeria, such as Kenya, such as South Africa wish to contest for any category. Luckily, Liberia is the first and only African country today that is on Category A at the IMO. For the first time, this is the kind of initiative that we would like to see a continental maritime body initiate and position its members to have a voice in international fora such as the IMO. In conclusion, moving towards the establishment of an African Maritime Organization will help elevate Africa's maritime profile on the global stage, attracting attention and investment in Africa's maritime sectors. AMO will develop a comprehensive and unified maritime strategy for Africa, aligning policies, regulations, and operational frameworks to address common challenges more effectively. Our desire to transform with partners to become the Africa Maritime Organization will strategically align with the objectives of the 2050 Africa Integrated Maritime Strategy, the Lomé Charter on Maritime Security and Safety and Development in Africa, and ultimately the Africa Union's Agenda 2063, and by so doing, promote sustainable development in maritime practices and support economic growth and development through responsible resource management. The guiding principle in this collaboration is collaboration and not competition between existing regional bodies on maritime. Africa can and should do more in regional and international maritime pursuit in a spirit of strategic cooperation and collaboration. The time for Africa Maritime Renaissance is now, and we at MOCA, in partnership with other critical stakeholders like I mentioned, Moesna, AMA, PAMESA, and others, want all of us to join hands in this forward-looking and sustainable initiative through the establishment of a continental body known as the Africa Maritime Organization. Let us support the African countries like Nigeria and others that are desirous of joining the IMO decision-making organs, Category 1A, like Liberia, Category C, like Nigeria and Liberia. Let's support them collectively so that we can have a stronger voice in this organization. Lastly, we at MOCA are proposing to host a continental experts meeting in early 2025 to advance this discussion so that we can build consensus towards the establishment of the Africa Maritime Organization. This will be done in conjunction with the Africa Development Bank, the IMO, Moesna, AMA, and other critical stakeholders, women in maritime, and the African Union especially, so that together we can work towards establishing a continental body that will be the voice of maritime globally. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Doctor. I think we have enough questions and ideas that we can share with the proposal he had made. Over to Mr. Kihange. Mr. Kiange, you have 12 minutes, please.
Thank you, moderator, and sorry? Is it okay? We are here discussing the agenda of strengthening the African maritime governance sector. Why are we discussing this agenda with all these bodies in operation? That is the question we need to answer by the time we leave this forum. And from where I sit or I stand as Moisna, we have had a number of discussions with our brothers in the industry. I remember during the last AMA meeting in Mombasa, we had a meeting with the Secretary General of ASA, the Secretary General of PAMESA, the Secretary General of MOCA, the Chair of AMA, and myself. By that time, we were ESCOs. And in that forum, we agreed on the need to strengthen the governance sector in Africa. We had a follow-up meeting on the same agenda in Abidjan, where Mosna was represented, MOCA was represented, AMA was not there, but we had African Development Bank, and I think we had African Union Commission to discuss the same agenda we are discussing today. And in that meeting, we agreed to bring that agenda to this forum for further deliberation. And that is why we are here today discussing this very important agenda. If you look at the maritime agenda in Africa, it has not been given the weight that it's supposed to be given. Why? That is the question we need to answer. And from where I stand, I think the main problem is a lack of a coordinating agency or organization or body that should drive the African maritime agenda, a body similar to what we have in the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have a very strong secretariat which is driving the trade facilitation agenda. We have a similar strong body in the aviation sector at the AU level, but we do not have a strong maritime sector at the AUC. If you look at the recommendations of the African Maritime Transport Charter, as revised in 2010, unfortunately, the document is yet to be operational because we still require two countries to sign and ratify the document so that it becomes operational. It gives a very elaborate governance on the maritime sector in Africa. So one of the things we should pick from this agenda is for us to advocate for those two signatures so that that document can be operationalized. Number two, you look at the African Integrated Maritime Strategy, another very important document meant to drive the strategy for the African maritime sector, as adopted in 2012 and aspirations as per the 2050. This document recommends, among many other things, establishment of a strong African body at the AUC, African Union Commission, to be anchored in that office. Why is it supposed to be anchored at the AUC? The main reason for that is that we are talking of African continent, and the AUC is the organization mandated by the African heads of state to drive the African agenda. So whatever proposal we come with must have the buy-in and the support of the AUC if we have to strengthen the African maritime agenda. So, on our side, for Moisna, and I believe it's a feeling among quite a number of other stakeholders from my discussions with them, is that that body needs to be established. How do we strengthen or establish that body? That is the question. And from our side as Moisna, our proposal and our feeling is that the AUC should take lead in this initiative. Then that body, once the AUC takes lead in this initiative, will have whatever organization or alliance, federation, whatever you call it, at the continental level. Below that, we'll have the regional maritime organizations. I know we are doing very well on the eastern side. MOCA equally is doing very well on the western and central side. And then the private sector and ASA, maritime administrations and AMA, port administration and the PAMESA and the rest will be also anchoring blocks in that body. If we have that body today with a proper sustainability model, a model that will be able to finance the activities of that organization, I believe our dream of driving the African Maritime Transport Charter will be realized. Our dream of addressing, implementing the African Integrated Maritime Strategy will be implemented, and our maritime agenda, both at the continental and the international level, will be amply represented. So, clarion call to all of you, brothers and sisters, is that can we find a way of empowering African Union Commission or AUC to drive this agenda? The maritime agenda in Africa is both technical and political. We might have very technical solutions which are very good and sounding, but they have the political goodwill. Will they see the light of day when they go to AUC? Will they see the light of day? If, for instance, I tell you that today, let's transform Moisna or MOCA to that organization, it's a very good technical proposal, but at the political level, how much can that say? Those are the questions we need to answer before we make a recommendation on this. If we say AUC, take lead in this, how is the buy-in at the political level? And how can we proceed? Another addition to this, I think, the biggest challenge could be money. But we have development partners. Yesterday, we were told how money is available, technical assistance from IMO, technical assistance from African Development Bank. Why can't these development partners even create a project, a kind of a project to drive this maritime agenda at AU, working with the AU Secretariat? 2-3 years project for this organization to set structures and sustainability model that can be driven going forward. I believe that could be easier to say than saying let's transform Moisna, let's transform MOCA, let's transform AMA, PAMESA, and the rest. That is my proposal to this forum, and I think that's the discussion we are supposed to discuss in this forum. Otherwise, thank you very much. I hope I have not spent beyond the limit. I've tried to be as generous and as direct as I could. Asanteni sana, Mungu abariki.
Asante, Mr. Kiange. Thank you so much. Good job. Okay, now Mr. Manolo, you have 10 minutes with the maritime single window topic before we can call in the other member of the panel and then open the floor for questions and answer and suggestions about the hot potatoes on the floor today.
Thank you, moderator. And as I've been introduced by the moderator, my name is Mwanaulu Issa. I work as the Director Trade Facilitation and Policy Harmonization for the Maritime Organization of Eastern, Southern, and Northern Africa. I will be presenting to you on the topic of facilitation, trade facilitation, and the maritime single window. So how are the maritime single windows being used to facilitate maritime trade? As most of you know, from the last couple of years, particularly looking at it from the COVID pandemic, there's been a need to future-proof our systems as far as maritime trade is concerned. So there has been a concerted effort by various partners in maritime trade facilitation to ensure that we as maritime stakeholders are able to digitize our processes, also for sustainability purposes. So looking at it from the policy perspective, we have under trade facilitation, most of the processes and procedures are anchored under the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. And from the maritime side, we have the IMO FAL Convention, which basically look at simplifying, harmonizing, and ensuring that processes are transparent for use by the maritime stakeholders. This also brings about the issue of boosting efficiency while maintaining business continuity at times of disruption. So for most of you who've had a chance to interact with the IMO FAL Convention, it basically gives guidelines and standards as well as recommended practices for simplifying the formalities associated with the arrival, stay, and departure of ships, so that then member states are required to comply through various tools, and the digitization tools, one of them being the maritime single window. So the IMO FAL Convention, effective 1st January 2024, it's entered into force, and it requires that the signatories then implement electronic maritime single window systems, which are then used to collect data. And a lot of countries have been trying to set up the maritime single windows. So if you've been following the conversations from yesterday, and I think the panel today morning, most of them have highlighted the issue about collaboration. And collaboration, even from the digital perspective, we have had various agencies such as customs, the port authorities, the immigration, and so on, which are involved in the smooth facilitation of maritime trade, putting their heads together to be able to have systems that can talk to each other. So the IMO FAL Compendium, which is a product of the electronic group on data harmonization that brought together experts from the WTO, from the customs, from a number of maritime institutions, and the member states, of course, were able to provide, to produce what we call the IMO FAL Compendium, which gives the guidelines on what are the data sets and the interfaces, the minimum requirements for the kind of information that needs to be collected by the maritime regulators or the ports in relation to the information being submitted prior to the arrival of the ship. Therefore, when you look at the digitization agenda, and I'm sure the presentations will be made available to you, so I just want to focus on particularly on the maritime context. Why is it important that the maritime institutions or the maritime organizations focus on digitizing their processes? As we've rightly put it, of course, digitization now is here with us for sustainability and as well as for business continuity. When you look at the stakeholders that have digitized their processes, not only the cargo, from the cargo owner perspective, but also the operators. For example, the shipping lines, we have a number of efforts that have been done by groups such as the DCSA. We have the International Association of Ports and Harbors, the IAPH. The focus has been to try and ensure that we are, of course, complying with the facilitation agreements, as well as ensuring that we have visibility in the processes. This also brings about cargo visibility when we look at track and trace systems, and also then ends up reducing the transaction costs and charges, since now the stakeholders are able to know what is required of them prior to arrival of the ship and what kind of documentation they're expected to submit. So we've had an evolution that has moved from the digital platforms. We've had Internet of Things. There's a lot going on advanced analytics. There's also the process automation in terms of blockchain technology. We have artificial intelligence. Systems are now being future-proofed to also allow the collection and analyzing of data that then can be used to make decisions and also to build on systems that are then responsive to stakeholder needs. We are also now seeing an era of autonomous ships, and I think most of us are now aware of the efforts in coming up with standards then that are acceptable for the operation of mass vessels. And I think some of the presenters yesterday also spoke a lot on that part. There's been a number of studies done by several groups, and the DCSA report that was released early in this year, if I can just quote that report, and one of the key highlights of the report was to give the digitization agenda. They basically said that 51% of cargo owners say that digitization can improve fuel efficiency. So when it comes to port calls and in terms of planning for the ship's arrival, you find that for ports that are highly digitized, for example, the European ports, when you talk about Port of Antwerp, we have in Asia, for example, Singapore. When you look at the best performing ports, most of their processes have been digitized, and this has ended up improving the efficiency and the ship turnaround time. Therefore, we can definitely see from the private sector or from the cargo owners that they also feel that we as ports and we as maritime stakeholders need to then move into full digitization of our processes for transparency. In the morning, one of our panelists talked about data collaboration. When you look at a lot of the systems that are now being put in place, we are required to share the data with the various maritime stakeholders, particularly the government agencies involved in the clearance and the procedures at the ports. So when you look at what is happening in the other sectors, particularly the customs, we have immigration, phytosanitary, and so on. They rely on the information submitted by the stakeholders to the port authorities for them to be able to process the goods or process the declarations being submitted by the ship's agents or the masters of the ships. So the benefits that then would come about as a result of the digital collaboration, we expect that we would have improved policy decision making in the sense that the data would provide us with an opportunity to make evidence-based decision making as well as predictive data analytics to be able to predict in terms of cargo that will be coming to ports. We also have another benefit such as the increase in supply chain predictability. The track and trace systems where a consignee sitting maybe in Africa is able to know as soon as a container has been loaded in a port in China and can plan ahead in terms of the port processes as well as the cargo evacuation. High levels of service efficiency. Of course, the digitization provides stakeholder coordination when it comes to cargo management or cargo evacuation and the port stakeholders involved in clearance of the goods. When it comes to transparency, of course, with digitization, we've seen a lot of reduced red tape as well as reduction in corrupt processes, since now the processes are very clear to the submitters of the information. There's been a number of global efforts as far as implementation of digital systems and particularly the maritime single window. From the IMO, there is the IMO SWIFT project, which is a single window for trade facilitation, which is a generic maritime single window which was developed by IMO in collaboration with a number of partners. So it gives a sample prototype that countries can be able to customize to be able to automate the maritime single window or the file processes. These standards are important because for interoperability and for systems to speak to each other, it's important that then we have a definition of the standards so that when people are building the systems, the data can be shared across stakeholders or integrations. I will come to a slide that will make this clear shortly. So when you talk about the maritime single window environment, you have the private stakeholders who are the data providers. So we're talking about, for example, the shipping agents, the vessel operators, the shipping line. In some countries, you find that the shipping agent acts on behalf of the shipping line to submit the required pre-arrival forms to the port authorities. So on the other side, you have the regulatory authorities who then require this information to be able to prepare for the permit approval and the planning of the arrival of the ship. So these are ports, authorities, immigration, customs. We have the port health or the phytosanitary and other regulatory agencies that then issue pre-clearance permits to be able to process the ship when it arrives at the port. Then you now have the maritime administrations. We can call them the maritime authorities. So they sit at the center because they are the ones that then implement or rather, they check the compliance in terms of the IMO file convention. So when we talk about the automation or the planning for maritime single windows, the maritime administrations play a key role to basically sit in as a regulator to advise the ports and as well as to look at what, in terms of information processing, collecting data that still can also be used as part of the IMSAS audit. So this slide gives a functional overview of what is automated on a sample maritime single window. So we all know about for example, the IMO file forms that range from the general declaration, the cargo manifest, the crew list, the last ports of call, which is basically used as an ISPS process. We have the vessel certificates, and I remember one of the panelists saying that now most of the systems, most of the ports then accept that the ship owner or the ship operator are able to submit some of these forms prior to the arrival of the ship. So these can also be submitted through a maritime single window. One thing I need to maybe make clear is much as there's been a lot of efforts to try and encourage countries to set up maritime single windows, some countries already had existing systems that were collecting some sort of information. So we have systems such as the terminal operating systems or the port operating systems, or port community systems. So what countries have done, some of them have been able to integrate the PCSs or the TOS to include a maritime single window module so that then the information is centralized and there's no duplication of systems or duplication of information sharing. What are the recommendations then that have been put forward when you look at the IMO file compendium, which gives a guideline on what to automate in relation to the IMO file? So we have the mandatory 7 file forms ranging from the general declaration. We have the cargo declaration, which sometimes we call the manifest. We have a declaration of the ship stores, which is normally processed by the customs for the master to basically confirm what are they carrying on board as the ship supplies. We have the crew effects declaration, which is a form that then the immigration is expected, and customs and immigration are supposed to then confirm that what is the crew carrying, their personal effects. We have the crew list, which is a form that then will be processed by immigration to grant
2 minutes more.
Yeah, then we have the passenger list in the sense of assuming this is a cruise ship calling at a port. Some forms that can also be automated to collect information on the maritime single window include the West Declaration form with MAPL annexes, which the vessels will be reporting the fuel carried on board. And this can also be used as far as reporting on decarbonization. For some countries, for example, for the case of Kenya, they were also able to customize a firearms declaration to declare the kinds of firearms being carried on board by the ships. For a maritime single window to operate effectively, there needs to be in place an effective legal framework. And it is crucial to the functioning of the system, and the framework needs to define the roles and responsibilities of all parties involved. So this framework, therefore, would have to comply and would borrow a lot from the WTO TFA as well as the IMO file standards. And this might also mean changing a bit of the regulatory frameworks or localizing the legal frameworks to allow the existence of a maritime single window. It's important that countries then establish entities such as interministerial committees made up of the port stakeholders and working groups, so that then they have buy-in from the beginning when the country is preparing to set up the maritime single window, and to be part of the reforms process. Data collaboration, I think I've talked about this. So a number of issues that are also coming about is the issues of cybersecurity. So we have all these systems, but we need to future-proof the systems so that then we have a legal framework guiding the sharing of data as well as guiding the security of data. So it's important that then member states not only look at digitization as a technological issue, but it's also a human capital and institutional issues that need to be sorted out when you're working on the maritime single window. I have published a dissertation. It's available in the World Maritime University, and I basically looked at the case study of Kenya during the implementation of the National Electronic Single Window and the effects on trade facilitation. So this can give you a general overview and in details on the issues that Kenya faced when they were implementing the maritime single window. Another thing I need to quickly highlight is the critical success factors for the system to be successful. You need to involve stakeholders through change management. You also need to have a lot of dedicated support from the technical side as well as the port and the policy side. There needs to have a monitoring and evaluation framework in order to establish the effectiveness of the system and to improve it because of the future needs or future requirements. I think that basically sums up what I wanted to discuss on the maritime single windows as a tool for trade facilitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manolu. I know I've been a little bit hard on you, but it's okay. I know you are used to it. So thank you so much. Let me say thank you to Ms. Manolu and Doctor here. Ms. Kihange, you'll be grilled a little bit more. And I would like to say thank you to you. Please give them another round of applause. Thank you. So let me quickly call Mr. Hubert Bakai, Director General, Togo Maritime Administration, as one of the panelists. And then Mr. Julius Mitingje, Director Maritime Transport Regulation, TASAC. And also Dr. Raisa Ado, Senior Policy of Transport Officer from the African Union Commission. Thank you, sir. Yes, please. Thank you so much. Each panelist will have 4.5 minutes now because we want to open the floor for maximum questions. Please take a seat. All eyes will be on you. Yes, boss. Thank you. Without further ado, let me give the panelists the floor now. They have the questions that we have forwarded to them, and they'll have 4.5 minutes to give a brief, each of them, and then we'll do all the questions at last. Maybe I start with Madam, ladies first.
Can you hear me? Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Raisa. I'm from African Union Commission. And I'm very glad to be here today. I'm standing up because I'm not too long, so I want everybody to see me and to hear from me from the African Union Commission. Thank you, moderator, for giving me the floor. Thank you, Amma. Thank you, IMO, for hosting this meeting in Africa and in Tanzania. We are very glad because last year in 2023, we are here in Zanzibar hosting our specialized technical committee on transport and energy. I know the debate is very hot. SG, we hear from you. Thank you for the good presentation. Moesna, we hear from you, and also our sister from Moesna. So regarding the debate we have, Can you repeat the question? I want the audience, because I received the question. Moderator, please. I received the question, but I want that audience to hear the question, and then I will respond to you.
The question for Ms. Raisa was, what are the key actions needed to enhance regional cooperation?
What is regional cooperation? We have the Abuja Treaty, which is guiding the African Union Commission. We need to foster our economy. We need to engage all the third parties to work together to promote the maritime organization and institutions. But what does it mean at the level of the AUC? As we know, AUC has a political role. We are here to support member states. And we also work with all the key stakeholders, including IMO, which means that regional cooperation is not left beyond only for the continent. It means that we need to collaborate among all the key regional expertise, the maritime institutions, what is existing. But at the AUC level, how can I express that one? First, let me refer to the revised African Maritime Transport Charter. This one is my baby, because when I joined the AUC, it was the first document they gave to me, and they say, Raisa, you need to refer to that document. The revised African Maritime Transport Charter was adopted in 2010 in Kampala. What was one of the first objectives of the revised African Maritime Transport Charter? Can I have time to look at it, moderator? Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to read it clearly and make it loudly, then all of us will be in the same page. Sorry. I think Article 5. Okay. Let me go to Chapter 3. Institutional Framework for Coordination of Activities Relating to Cooperation in Maritime Administrations and Port Operation. Article 5. Continental Organizations. In order to ensure the effective coordination of maritime transport policies and programs, the Union shall establish a continental unit for the coordination of activities of regional cooperation in shipping, marine pollution, and port operations. We are in. I don't have the M strategy as well, but the M strategy also refers to the fact that we need to establish a continental maritime body. And I want to appeal among everybody that we are committed to support the establishment of the maritime governance body. As Moesna mentioned, where is the debate? Who is supposed to lead? If I'm giving the response today, is not that I am taking part of the conversation. I am in the conversation. Even I am representing also the Commission. Just last week, the AUC just closed our 8th PIDA Week. PIDA Week is our program for development for infrastructure in Africa. And during that meeting, we had a very good conversation regarding the debate on decarbonization in Africa. And we come up with key recommendations. And one of the key recommendations from that meeting was saying, AUC, the meeting recommended AUC to establish an African Maritime Governance Body. So we remain support MOCA, MOESNA, AMA, all the key stakeholders sitting in that room, AFDB, because James is very supportive in this priority. We remain committed to work with all of them to see on how we can establish this maritime governance body. So I don't know if there is more to say about that one, because the presentation has been made, the obstacles have been demonstrated that there is a need, and we at the African Union Commission, we fully support this initiative, and I'm expecting, as SG mentioned, that if next year the meeting is organized, let's make it in collaboration with the African Union Commission, under the auspice of the African Union Commission, and why not in Ethiopia, where we call what we say in French, les États généraux des transports maritimes, where we call all the key stakeholders. We sit together and we make a decision, including the IMO, because we can't develop or establish this maritime body without the support of everyone. Thank you so much. Submit for you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Raisa. Before I open the floor, don't worry, don't be overexcited. I know it's an exciting topic. I'll give 3 minutes to colleagues on the left, and let me give the floor to Mr. Bakai. And your question was, what are the main barriers in developing the maritime trade in Africa? 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Bakai Machonawe from the administration of Togo. I would like to thank AMA and IMO to let me have this opportunity to be in this panel. To go ahead, I would like to express myself in French in order to be more fluent. Thank you very much. Chers participants, je suis très honoré de prendre la parole pour répondre à cette problématique liée aux barrières dans le transport maritime au sein entre États africains. Et cette question nous ramène à plusieurs aspects concernant l'importance du transport maritime dans le commerce africain, dans le commerce mondial. Et lorsque nous regardons un peu les statistiques, nous constatons qu'au niveau mondial, il y a 80% du transport maritime mondial qui dispose d'un volume de 80% et de 70% pour le matériel transporté à travers la mer. Et au niveau africain, nous constatons que seuls 15% du commerce intra-africain ont été évalués durant ces dernières années. Alors, nous constatons que la part de l'Afrique, donc, dans ce commerce mondial est très infime, et il est tout à fait normal de se poser des questions par rapport aux obstacles qui fait que cette part est très infime. Et lorsque nous allons au niveau des différents obstacles, nous voyons qu'il y a deux obstacles qui sont transversaux. Il y a des obstacles, l'obstacle lié au financement et l'obstacle qui est lié aux questions de formation, de renforcement de capacités. Donc, il y a eu des présentations qui m'ont précédé, notamment la présentation du secrétaire général de MOCA, qui est allé dans des perspectives assez globales. Et j'aimerais revenir sur certains aspects non exhaustifs des obstacles que nous avons pu identifier dans notre exercice. Et lorsque nous regardons un peu, nous voyons qu'au niveau des infrastructures portuaires, il y a des insuffisances à ce niveau. Donc, quelles sont ces insuffisances? Il y a une capacité limitée de nos ports. Les ports africains souffrent d'une faible capacité pour accueillir des navires. les navires de grande taille particulièrement, et ce qui fait que ces ports aussi ont des difficultés à traiter des volumes importants de marchandises. Nous voyons aussi qu'il y a une obsolescence des équipements. Les équipements sont assez vieillissants et il faut les renouveler, il faut les adapter aux nouveaux défis économiques et aux nouveaux défis du transport. Et donc, ça se remarque au niveau de tous les ports, même au niveau du port de Lomé, qui est en totale modernisation actuellement. Nous avons aussi certains obstacles liés à l'accès terrestre, parce que lorsque les marchandises arrivent, il faut bien pouvoir les porter vers leur destination finale. Et nous remarquons qu'au niveau africain, ces accès au niveau des infrastructures routières et ferroviaires sont pratiquement inexistantes ou inadaptées. Nous avons également la vétusté des moyens de transport maritime. Et malheureusement, notre continent est celui-là qui accueille les navires les plus vieux, de plus de 50 ans. Et on remarque donc dans leur fonctionnement des difficultés, parfois avec des accidents qui nous interpellent. Donc, quand on va plus loin, nous avons aussi les menaces sécuritaires, un environnement sécuritaire très éprouvé. Et par rapport à cela, nous appelons à une coopération entre les différents pays, parce que pour pouvoir affronter ou faire face aux questions de piraterie maritime, forcément, nous avons besoin de coopérer entre l'administration et entre les forces navales de nos différents États. Nous avons aussi la menace terrestre qui, aujourd'hui, risque d'entamer la mer, qui est la menace terroriste. Et donc, il y a lieu que les États africains, nos forces, nos administrations soient permanentes. Il faut une permanence au niveau de la mer, dans leur espace maritime respectif, dans la mer territoriale et au-delà. Et pour cela, il faut les moyens des forces navales pour pouvoir occuper ces aspects. Donc, je ne sais pas si j'ai encore quelques minutes. OK. Donc, je vous remets la parole à mon collègue. Merci.
The last on the panel is Mr. Julius Mtinge, Director, Maritime Transport Regulation, TASAC. The question, how can technological advancement be leveraged for development? You have 3 minutes. Technological advancement.
Thank you, moderator. I was to speak about how can infrastructure be further developed to meet future challenges.
It's okay. You can go ahead with that question. It's an important question as well, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes. Of course, what I'm going to speak here is almost to echo what has been spoken here since yesterday, from the speeches which were delivered here and from some of the panelists. They talked about how can infrastructure be further developed to meet the future challenges. As the last speaker said, in Africa, especially in our ports, we have, for the past few days and some few years, many ports are experiencing congestions. So one of the issues African ports have to look on is to expand and modernize the ports so that they can be able to accommodate larger vessels and also invest in handling equipment so that it can be more efficient. Also, we can look on the issue of investing in the technologies, as the last panelist said. Automation is the key in the modern ports. In the current way, we talk about smart ports. Currently, many ports are just semi-autonomous. So, if we want to go with the pace and to meet the future challenges, we have to ensure that we are full autonomous. So vessels and ports, we go away with manual interventions. We automate the processes and everything in the port. Also on the issue of connectivity, you find the port is the transport link. but most of the ports, they are not well connected with other modes of transport. So there is a high need of having better roads, and so that we can unlock the ports. You find cargo are discharged, but the cargo offtake is not going smoothly. So that's the one area we have to look into it. Also, we have to look on the cross-border business. You find most of the borders, border points, they are congested. You find a long queue in the borders. So we have to ensure that borders are operating efficiently. So even the ports, they can run efficient. Other issues is on climate change. The issue of climate change has been spoken with many speakers here, but I think it's high time now. The construction of ports have to look on the issue of sustainability, so that we have the green ports, and we go away with any risk associated with climate changes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll open the floor quickly because I see requests. Let's give a good round of applause to our panelists here. We'll open the floor quickly because I know there's lots of thirst for ask some questions. And Madam Funmi had proposed to call ASA. Or Madam Funmi, you want to? Yes, please, go ahead. The floor is yours. You have 5 minutes. I think you can do that in 5 minutes.
All right, hold on a second. Could we probably give everyone 3 minutes rather than 5? As our time is up, yes.
My 5 minutes starts now.
Okay, where's the other hand?
You're wasting. I want to speak specifically on the African Maritime Organization that is being proposed. I speak for and on behalf of private sector in Africa. Mosena has control of 8 countries. MOCA has control of 26 countries. The African ship owners has control or representation in the 8, the 26, and all others except Uganda. How was African ship owners set up? It was an initiative by MOCA, held in Ghana under the then Secretary General of MOCA. How was AAMA set up? William is here, Nancy is here, and John Omingo of Kenya. They were all there at the very first Ship Owners Summit in Ghana, where it was mooted that AAMA be set up. It is a shame that today, that organization where ASA was conference organizer, refuses to acknowledge that there is a stakeholders platform called ASA. ASA came before AAMA. ASA was an organizer of that AAMA. Today, ASA has an MOU with the African Union, and we've been working very closely with the African Union to bring together relevant stakeholders to speak to the African maritime agenda. We are asking ourselves, where are your stakeholders? Where are the ports? Where are the women in the African Maritime Organization being proposed? I had an interesting conversation with Morocco this morning. He told me the number of ships they had there. And I said to him, but there are countries. He said 16, I think. And I said to him, that's a large number. He said, that's not large. I said, well, for countries in Africa that do not have ships, And his response was brilliant. He said, if there are no ships in that country, it is not a maritime country. That was the first conversation I had this morning. And then to sit here, and you're proposing an African maritime organization without your stakeholders, I think we should step down this conversation on African and then speak about it some other time. Finally, sir, I wish to ask. I met a lady for the first time. She spoke to me from IMO. And her first question was, I can't find any ship owner, African ship owner here. And I said, you are there. Speak to the maritime administrations. You're going to IMO without your ship owners. You're setting up an African maritime organization without your stakeholders. Distinguished audience, we support an African maritime organization, but we're saying the composition needs to be defined. Bring in your stakeholders, and then we'll be talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Over to James, then Mr. Azu. Yeah, James, you have 3 minutes. Huh?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll speak from here. My name is James Nganga. I've been in this dialogue with MOCA and a number of other players in the background for the last 2 years. In this dialogue, the African Development Bank...
James, please introduce yourself briefly, half a second.
I'm a port and maritime transport expert with the African Development Bank. I work out of Abidjan, and I have the benefit of being the only institution in the continent that has a continental mandate when it comes to maritime industry. That's where I'm speaking from. Coming from that background, our bank is guided in its work in infrastructure by the high five on regional integration. So all the investments we undertake in infrastructure improvement, capacity building, are guided by the quest to catalyze and deepen regional integration. We see the African Continental Maritime Organization as providing a very key anchor role for our sector, the maritime sector. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I come from an institution that has other sectors, so I am able to see work and activities driven by colleagues in energy, in agriculture, in other aspects. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not where some of the other sectors are as a maritime sector. My colleagues in energy, I can tell you, out of a score of 5, they probably score 4, and ourselves we score 2 in terms of readiness in many aspects. Decarbonization, maritime security, single window trade facilitation. We are not where we ought to be. It is on that background I have been championing this agenda with Dr. Paul, providing guidance and input from the background so that we can develop and strengthen coordination of the maritime sector at continental level, so that we then also, when we engage with IMO, we engage from a unified, strengthened, harmonized position. There are many other benefits I can enumerate of that. So ladies and gentlemen, we support, as the African Development Bank, this initiative. We do have within the bank a funding instrument that can support supports regional integration and supports regional operations. I have received assurances from colleagues that we should be able to support the initiative, but we have 1 or 2 prerequisites. The consultation must be exhaustive, extensive, and inclusive of all parties. The lady from the ASA was trying to bring that point out. It is important from our perspective that the consultation for this debate, this discourse, is as comprehensive as possible, so that all parties' interests and considerations can be taken on board. But also, as an honest broker dealing with all parties in this sector, we have also one question. We do believe the regional organizations have some value addition to bring in the regions they operate in. So as we also go through this discourse, let us not forget that the regional organizations need to be strengthened. So please propose measures and mechanisms of how the regional organizations can be strengthened, so that as a continent we achieve our maritime objectives. So that's all I wanted to share, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Please speak out so that we pick out the issues that need to be articulated. And I want to echo, final comment. I want to echo the comment by, I want to recognize what Dr. Paul said in terms of a workshop next year, but I want to suggest strongly that can that workshop be held also in a strong collaboration with the African Union, possibly in Addis Ababa under the umbrella and support of AUC. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Over to Mr. William. James, please give him the micro. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I would like to thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start with responding to my sister, Fumi Folorencio. Fumi, if you had listened towards the end of Secretary General Moka's intervention, he did say that consultation will be inclusive, including ASA. So I just want to reference that no one is left behind. And lately, James had just taken the words off me. And Raisa, thank you for being here. And you see, I'm happy with this discussion because there is consensus for the establishment of this continental body. That is important. Everyone has agreed, but how? How now involves the coordination, the consultation, but there must be a focal point. And that focal point has to do with African Union in collaboration with the focal point, which is MOCA, that has now come forward to initiate this. The problem we'll have with Africa is that we have multitude of charters, multitudes of documents. We're not looking for new documents, it's implementation. It's easy to do the talk, but walking the talk is critical. And we talked about yesterday about financing the maritime industry, but the initiatives have been taken. The Regional Maritime Bank will be launched early next year in Abuja to start this process. So for me, it is collaboration, it's not isolation. And it is important that we have this consensus that a continental body is necessary, but there must be drivers. And those drivers are the discussions we're having now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. William. The micro, last speaker, please. Colleague here from Liberia, please. Quickly. You have 2 minutes, huh?
2 minutes. 2 minutes too long.
Too long, eh? 1 minute. And Mr. Kiange also, what, 1 minute?
No, I'll speak.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me the audience. I'll promise not to take too much of your time. I just want to speak to the most important issues. My name is Dr. Dayo Moberiola. I'm the Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Authority and Safety Administration. I want to just start by making a very important point on the maritime window and also the national single window. One of the mistakes that have been made in the past is that the difference between the maritime single window and the national single window is not clear to the countries involved. And it is therefore important for the promoters of these maritime single windows as well as the single windows to enlighten the government's concerns and the public on what exactly is maritime single window and what is national single windows. Secondly, the effectiveness of maritime single window is that it has to be enshrined in law. If it's not enshrined, I'm just making a comment. No, just okay. All right. So it is just an opportunity for me to let you know that My main point here is just to let you know that under the SPOMO Act, Nigeria has done so much for the country. We are the first country in the whole of African continent to actually sign the SPOMO Act and have implemented it, and that is why we are the only country in the Gulf of Guinea that has zero piracy. And beyond that, we are also supporting the Gulf of Guinea as well to reduce piracy in that area. So it is important you know that. Our Deep Blue project, which is under the NEMASA, has done so well in ensuring that the security and safety of the maritime domain in the Nigerian blue water is secured, and as a result, by extension, the Gulf of Guinea. So I also want to let you know that, and most importantly,
excuse
we
me,
have,
please.
1 second. Okay. We also have our brother who has spoken about MOCA, and we want to say that we support the transition, and when it takes place, we hope that we, Africa, will be able to speak at once. And on that note, I just want to mention that Nigeria as a country will be contesting for the IMO Category C as the #1 biggest African country, as well as #6 in the world. And we just want you to know that without us in the IMO, then the whole of Africa will not be well represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kiange had requested for the last. It's only fair that he is able to intervene. Mr. Kiange, you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator, and thank you, participants, for your contributions. Thank you, SG ASA, for your intervention. Just a clarification that MOESNA membership or scope of MOESNA is 27 countries. 8 of them are already finalized their membership, and 19, I think, have various levels of finalizing their membership to the organization. To the question of the day, I want to finish this by giving 2 examples. Thank you, Raisa, for confirming that the AUC is ready to work with the rest of this team in strengthening African governance. My brother James, thank you very much for confirming that there could be some funds for this initiative. And therefore, I want to say this from my experience in the industry, and that's why I was proposing, because of the financial challenges that AAC could be having to drive this agenda. I have 2 case studies where I've seen a project being supported by development partners and producing organizations that have become very vibrant today. The first organization is a national one, that is the Kenya Trade Network Agency. It was established on the need to implement the trade single window in Kenya, and the genesis for that was because of the differences and the confusion we are having in this forum, where Kenya Post Authority wanted to take over the single window system, or Kenya Revenue Authority wanted to take over the single window system, and there was no leadership. So the Commonwealth Secretariat came in and invested some money to establish a secretariat. That secretariat was able to transform into the current Kenya National Trade Agency, which is now running the single window system. Number 2, many of you might be aware of the Central Corridor. I don't know whether you know how Central Corridor was started. Central Corridor was started as a project. The project team came to East Coast then to do benchmarking, and from that, I think it was a 2-year project, did the concept note, and within those 2 years of the project, the agency was born. So when I propose a project approach to this initiative, I'm proposing it based on those experiences, and I believe if we can get the support from African Development Bank and the support from African Union, together with us, MOCAs and the AMAs, ASAs, and the rest, we can do something that can form a basis for us to be able to have a platform to come together, discuss African problems, discuss African solutions, and discuss African agenda at the continental and global level. I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Kihange. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached at the end of the session. I know it's something... Sorry? Yeah,
Liberia.
There's too many people asking to talk. You are the last one. I'm serious about it because we need to allow ourselves to be guided by unity. Then we can achieve success as the continent. Otherwise, we will talk and we'll never go anywhere as we are today.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. 2 minutes is too long. I'm a man of brevity for those that know me. On the issue at bar is number one, the transport charter gave rise to AMA. So how different will this new proposed organization be from AMA? That's one. Number two, the transport charter gives rise to the IN Strategy 2050 that calls for the establishment of the Department of Maritime Affairs, already approved by the heads of state in 2014. How far have they gone? So this whole issue calls for deeper consultation. Is there a need for any other continental organization? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe the proposal for the platform... No. We have to stop because if we allow one more, others will ask and I'll not be able to. Unless there's some separate questions. No, not possible. Not under my leadership because I've been tasked with strict time management. I've been flexible and allowed people to go a little bit overboard. And let's be guided by the proposal for the next year forum. We will have enough time to prepare our agenda for hot debate at the AUC. Maybe James will support us with some funding to be able to go there because this is a very important topic. I thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for those people in the hot seat. Thank you.
Okay. I've just had a bit of consultation here that we're moving into the next session. We're finalizing our sessions. And congratulations. Colonel, I know that was a tough one, especially towards the end. And may I call on the next session, please? The moderator to please come forward. I hope you're here because we're probably just, yes, you're here. And we had spoken. So, Madam, you have seen how Colonel Cisse was a bit, gave a little bit of leeway, but it was still tough at the end. So we spoke earlier during tea, Miss Sylvia Owu. Please could you put your hands together for Mama? Karibu. I have full confidence in you, so I won't say too much. Please take it away, ladies and gentlemen. And Let's do well with time.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists, distinguished participants. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Sylvia Asana Dauda Owu. I am the president of WIMOCA, which stands for Women in Maritime of West and Central Africa, a creation of IMO. I'm also with the Ghana Shippers Authority as the Director of Operations. I'll be your moderator for the topic, Gender and Diversity in the Maritime Sector. I'd like to thank the government of Tanzania, AMA, and IMO for giving me the opportunity to be here. Gender and diversity in the maritime sector cannot be overemphasized. I know most of you here are very passionate about the topic. It is an area of interest to many, and it is important that we talk about it. It was very heartwarming for me when the IMO Secretary General talked about the initiatives he's taking at that level to ensure gender diversity and inclusiveness at the IMO. And I hope that by the end of this, we'll all pick some ideas as to how we can further improve upon what we are doing. The maritime sector, as you all know, is traditionally male-dominated. And in recent times, a lot of efforts have been made to ensure gender inclusion in the sector, but more needs to be done. This is critical because gender diversity is crucial in fostering an enabling and inclusive maritime environment and promotes equal opportunities for all, regardless of gender, identity, ethnic background, or other discriminatory practices. Gender diversity enhances the workforce in maritime sector, and by so doing, contributes Devita Mandada. Dr. Mandada is the president of the Association of Women Working in the Maritime Sector in Eastern and Southern Africa. That is WOMESA. She's also the principal legal officer at TASAC. She will be giving us a presentation on the role of women in maritime. She will take 15 minutes. In addition to that, we will have Ms. Batura Kenny. Madam, are you here? Ms. Batura Kenny. Yes, she's here. Good. She's a representative of the network of professional women in maritime and port sectors for West and Central Africa. She's a former ambassador of Senegal to Guinea and Congo, and her presentation will be on best practices in promoting diversity. Our panelist will be Mr. Bakaye Diop. Mr. Bakaye Diop is the Managing Director of the National Agency of Maritime Affairs in Senegal. He's a data engineer and a lawyer by profession. And prior to his appointment, he was working in the fisheries sector in France. We also have Ms. Winnie Maina. Madam, if you are here, just come up. She is the chairperson of WOMESA Kenya, a gender activist and a lawyer by profession. We have Mr. John Omingo, Kenya Maritime Attaché to the IMO in London, and he was a former Director General of Kenya Maritime Authority.
Madam Winnie will be joining the panel. She's moving over from Serena.
Okay.
And if we could give her some professional treatment so that she could do her part and then move back to the meeting.
Okay.
Please continue.
All right. So we also have Ms. Loveness Masuka Dumwa, Chief Director, Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure Development, Zimbabwe. So ladies and gentlemen, please let me have you up here so that we can get the ball rolling. So on this note, let me invite Madam Dr. Mandada to give us her presentation. 15 minutes, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Devota Mandanda. I'm a president of WOMESA, and also I'm working with the Tanzania Shipping Agencies Corporation, TASAC, as a principal legal officer. Today, I have pleasure to stand before you presenting a paper on the role of women in maritime. My presentation will cover on the introduction, and I believe at the end of it we will be able to understand it, the historical context, current status, challenges faced, efforts done, contribution and impact, future outlook, recommendation, and conclusion. The role of women in maritime sector has been evolved significantly over the years. And several aspects reflect their contributions and challenges within this sector. It has been reflected from a range of maritime areas, from ashore and offshore as well, including supporting services. It is very significant as it encourages gender equality, brings diverse perspectives in key areas such as navigation, engineering, leadership, and it inspires future generations. Gender, role of women has got the historical context. The maritime industry, as we have all been repeatedly saying, it was and it is male-dominated one, with women underrepresented as in key roles, both at sea and in shore-based operations. However, there has been increasing recognition of the need to bridge the gender gap, and various efforts at the continental and global levels are in place to promote women's participation and leadership in the maritime sector. Traditionally, traditional gender roles continue to shape expectations of men and women in Africa. Women, as you all know, in African context, are expected to deliver some not very critical role in the society. Women are expected to be caregivers, to be in domestic roles, and so on. They are not expected to engage themselves in a serious business, and men have been seen as bread earners. These norms limit women's participation, limits women's freedom to fully participate in the society and to emancipate themselves. Other discriminations are still there, though are fought with various policies and laws, but it is in both public and private spheres. In promoting gender equality within the society, there are some efforts from the international perspective, continental perspective, and even national perspective. We all know that there are international frameworks that has been put in place. We have several UN conventions and frameworks. For example, the UN Charter of 1945. We have Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. We have Convention on Elimination of All Kinds of Discrimination Against Women of 1979. We also have Convention on the Rights of the Child of 1990. We have International Convention on Civil and Political Rights of 1966. We have Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women of 1993, and the Declaration of Right to Development of 1986. In all these documents, the role of women, the gender equality has been enshrined and has been stressed. And through this, member countries of UN, member countries of other international bodies have been dedicated themselves to implement these conventions that has been ratified. But we still have challenges, and this will be the topic of discussion. Why are we still have challenges while we have set the framework, we have all these set up, and we are dedicated ourselves by assimilating them to our national laws, to our national policies, but we are singing the same song from generation to generation. The progress have been observed, but not much. We cannot say that we are confident that now we have achieved the goal that has been expected. The progress report on the Sustainable Development Goal of 2024 shows that in 18% of countries, women do not have equal rights to confer citizenship to their spouses and their children. But this has been placed on men. 54% of countries do not have laws that base on legal definition of rape on the lack of freely given consent. This is a big problem, especially in African culture. In 51% of countries, there is at least one restriction preventing women from doing the same jobs as men. You can prove that during the discussion or rebut it. 72% of countries set the minimum age of marriage below 18 with no legal exceptions for both men and women. So how are we gonna see the women's representation today? The current status shows that globally, women spend 2.5 times as many hours a day on unpaid care and domestic work as men. In 2023, women held 26.9% of seats in parliaments, 35.5% of seats in local governments, and 27.5% of managerial positions. With this data and facts, the changes of attaining the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 is a dream. We are 2025. We haven't even achieved what has been expected to be achieved. And now we are speaking of pushing it to 2050 or probably 2092, because there are some data say that some other things we can, with this space, we can achieve very, very far beyond our expectations. And this including maritime sector. We cannot promote gender in maritime sector if within our societies we are continuing embracing the norms and the traditions that put women behind. We cannot engineer gender equality in maritime sector if we embrace within even our families. We are not confident with our women. So avoiding speaking on only maritime, we have to look behind where we should go, where we should start with, and what we should be put in place to enable to achieving the gender equality. United Nations Trade and Development Performance Scorecard shows that globally women participation rate in ports is only 18%. Their participation in ports operations and services departments is even lower at 16%. The United Nations Trade and Development Train for Trade Port Management program is helping to bridge the gender gap by empowering more women in ports. And in 2021, 35% of the trainees were women, but still 35%, not even 50. It can be 60 because women are many according to the statistics comparing to men. IMO WISTA survey of 2021 reveals that from support roles to executive level positions, 39% of women within the surveyed companies work in mid-management, and 28% in technical roles, and 48% in the administrative and support roles. We can observe that with these data, there are some areas that women are very underrepresented. The company that has been stated, they have board, the share of female board members was 28, according to the statistics. And on 2023, the scorecard for Africa indicates that female participation rate in all categories is 17.7, in management level is 40.5, in operations is 7.1, in cargo handling is 1.2, and the other employees is 28.2. Also, the review of Maritime Transport 2024 indicates that participation of women in ports should be further promoted and encouraged, particularly in areas that are still strongly underrepresented, such as cargo handling, operations, technical marine, and engineering. Women in maritime sector, just like other sectors, they face challenges. The challenges are gender stereotypes and misconceptions about women's capabilities, particularly in physically demanded maritime jobs. This can discourage women from pursuing maritime careers. Also, cultural perceptions limiting women participation. I don't want to talk more because I think we should by now be further than what we observe that are happening within our families. How we treat boy child and girl child despite all policies, international efforts, regional efforts, yet we come there with the implementation. That is a big problem. Deep-rooted cultural perceptions about gender roles play a significant part in limiting women participation in maritime jobs. Lack of access to education and training, while there are few in institutions offering maritime educations, women often lack the support or encouragement to pursue these causes. Few scholarships or scarcity of scholarships and the training opportunities has been hindering the women to proceed. We know there are several maritime education training fund. Even in Tanzania, we have one. It has been established in 2011. It has been put into functions, I think, in 2020. But from 2020 up to now, it has only benefited 54 females for the loans to start mainstream courses in our maritime institute. But in general, the number is 350. So in 350, only 54 are women. There are other challenges on board ships or even at workplace of sexual harassment, discrimination, and lack of appropriate facilities, for example, on board women's toilets or adequate accommodations. We all know that. We sing the song every day. We are not so sure with the capacity, but I think, and we should get somewhere. The other challenges is the extended period of time spent at sea, especially for those women with caregiving responsibilities. And this has been taken as an excuse for employers sometimes not to opt to employ women because of, they say, women has got too much problems. But we are emphasis on the equality. We know that biologically we are different, but the capability, we are all capable. So with the challenges, with the needs, women should be accommodated in all aspects of maritime industry. There are global initiatives that has been put in place to empower women. For example, there are WISTA initiatives. We have seen that they have conducted the research in association with the IMO on the role of women, and the data has been stipulated. This is basically to empower women and to bring about the gender equality within the sector. We have Sea Change 2020 initiatives. This is focusing on recruitment and retention and the rights, equal rights on board and ashore. There is Maritime Women Summit, where women gather, sharing experiences, challenges, and discussing the important matters to promote and empower gender in the maritime sector. We have regional and international advocacy. We all know what role IMO plays on promoting gender equality. The Secretary General repeated yesterday. Today, some presenters has pointed out the same. I repeat the same. We have been repeating this all of the time. There is a gender program at the IMO, and it is doing well. I'm standing here because of that program. WOMESA is an outcome of that initiatives by IMO. African Union as well. We have African Maritime Transport Charter. The charter emphasizes gender equality within the maritime sector. Some of the countries has ratified the charter. Some, they are not. We encourage all the nations, all states, member states, to ratify this charter as it implements the international legal framework, as well it will be a bridge to our national laws and policies. Capacity building and training programs. This is WIMA objectives. WIMA has got branches all over. WOMESA is one of WIMA's. We have WIMOCA. We have other female associations within the continent, all enshrined or focused on the same goal, objectives of empowering women. So these are the initiatives that we observe. We have also national and regional gender policies. I know some of the countries, including my own country, Tanzania, has got laws and policies that protect women's rights, that encourage gender equality, and even East African community has been able, through MOESNA, to develop maritime transport policy, which within the issue of gender equality has been stressed. This is a good move for the countries which doesn't have maritime transport policy. It is time now to focus having one, good one, I know in Tanzania, the amendments of national transport policy is ongoing, and WOMESA have been actively involved and provided their opinions. And we have heard from our Director General yesterday that coming to 2025, we are going to develop national maritime transport policy. And gender equality is a paramount. The role of women has contributed much and has got an impact. Through gender equality and empowerment, that has been promoted by IMO, that has been promoted by Maritime Labour Convention on the rights of employment rights, equal rights, and everything. Women has got involved on these initiatives. Also, we can see women involved in health, safety, and family support. They have been initiated on family leave, maternity support, work-life balance, contributed to focus on hindering harassment and safety as well. There are international policy representation that in it we can see some women. These increased representation, national and regional policies. In the education and career development, the contribution of women has been seen in training and scholarships, though few, networking and leadership development as well. What should be done? What is the future outlook? We have opportunities in technology and digital transformation now. This is the trend. We have to embark it. We cannot stay stagnant, though there are some challenges, there are some other myths and traditional norms that we haven't been cleared as well, but we cannot stay behind as the global are moving. There are autonomous ships. It is the time for women to get these opportunities in artificial intelligence, robotics, and smart shipping. They have to focus on cybersecurity and data management by raising demand for women in technology roles in maritime. Also digital platforms and e-commerce. The contribution of women in the development of systems that optimize logistics, streamline supply chains, and improve customer experience in global trade is really, really needed. In conclusion, I can say that women's roles in maritime is critical for industry growth and to sustainability as well. You cannot develop leaving your partner, your fellow behind. We cannot enrich our national and international economies if we leave some other people behind. All the efforts that are put in place with the Women Association in Maritime sector, without the Maritime Administration support and the national support, this will all go in vain. We need your support. We have action plans to implement. We have strategies to implement. We have objectives to implement. Without implementing them, we can only speak of the gender equality without succeeding. So if you may allow me, please, I submit. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mandanda. Yes, indeed, you cannot develop without, taking everybody along. You can't develop by leaving some people behind. The statistics she's proved across looks a bit gloomy. You know, we've been working, but we need to work harder. We need to do more to include women in all that, to ensure gender and diversity in our maritime sector. Thank you very much, Doctor, for a well-researched paper. Thank you. So on this note, let me call on our second speaker to also take the floor, and that's in the person of Miss Batuara Kene. Madam, please. I'm sure she'll be speaking in French. She's from Senegal. Yeah. Thank you, Madam.
Bonjour tout le monde. Comme elle l'a si bien dit, je me présente Madame Batoura Kane. Madame Batoura Kane, je suis sénégalaise. Je voudrais d'abord remercier l'OMI d'avoir bien voulu nous associer à cette conférence. Et je voudrais vous transmettre les salutations fraternelles de l'Association de gestion des ports de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre, et vous transmettre les remerciements de Mme Magali Tades, coordonnatrice générale du dit réseau que j'ai l'honneur de représenter ici. Pour la présentation, elle a dit tout à l'heure, elle m'a présenté comme étant un ancien ambassadeur du Sénégal en République de Guinée et en République du Congo. Portuaire. Et après, j'ai terminé par être directrice de l'Institut de formation portuaire de Dakar, le Centre Renmar. Et j'ai été la première coordonnatrice générale de ce réseau en 2007 quand il a été créé. Je dois présenter le thème sur diversité dans le secteur maritime, les meilleures pratiques. En fait, quelles sont les meilleures pratiques pour arriver à une diversité dans le secteur maritime? Je voudrais en introduction rapidement dire que pendant longtemps, les activités maritimes, dont la pêche fondamentalement, ont été l'apanage des hommes. À partir des années 80, nous avons commencé à voir les femmes intégrer les ports, mais timidement, notamment dans les fonctions commerciales et administratives. Ce n'est que vraiment à partir des années 2000, avec l'avènement des nouvelles technologies de l'information et de la communication, que les femmes ont réellement commencé à intégrer l'encadrement et le top management.
Network of women in maritime and port, which was created under the management of the port of West Africa and Central. I'd like to salute Mr. Jean-Marie Kofi, the permanent secretary of the Association of Port of Western Africa and Central Africa, and I helped this network to be created. Thank you, Mr. Kofi, to support the women of Central and West Africa. The objective was to create a network. We noticed that women was not represented in the port activities, but in trainings and other technical positions, and women were not there. And when we had Madame Mireille Paco, she has passed away, was the first women of JPAOC. When she came to Dakar, she told me that what can we do for women? And then we decided to create, to put in place this network so that we can be heard. And it was in January 2007 we put in place that network in February with the recognition of IMO. We launched that network. After that, we had to sensitize African women, and we had a session in Lagos and in Praia to launch this network of network and GPOC allowed to make our activities with the general directors. This network, as I said, was being created in 2007 in the framework of exchanging to gather all African women around a framework to discuss women-specific matters. They asked us to talk about some best practices of this diversity in port and maritime activities. Due to our exchanges, we noticed that for us to solve some issues, we need the three axes for diversity: the networking, the training, and lobbying. So we created this network in 2007, as I said earlier. After us, other network has been born with the support of IMO. We have also the networks of professional women in African and Western and Central African. We had Womeza in Kenya in December 2007. In January 2010, another was created in Philippines, Mamla in Jamaica, Mamla in Chile in December 2007, and Wimoka in Ghana. It was the Anglophone, English-speaking, created in 2021. I'd like to say that in my country, Senegal, we have 29% manpower of women, and only 7% are cadres, are official. At about 95% of high officials are men. Now we have to develop some strategies that can help women. Since then, we emphasized the presence of women. We identified another area, the capacity building and trainings to promote women in some profession. It's need some requirements, especially to meet these requirements, international and nationals maritime requirements. So we need to be at the STEM level. So we need to have the same capacities as women, as men, especially in schooling. And we enforced in technologies to know how to do and some intellectual aptitude. Now women are attending some maritime schools in international trade. Now we have some skills that women need. For example, the presence of women in ship, the night working, and we need some adaptations. This is the reason it's imperative. Our authorities must involve women in trainings so that we can have a public policies. The implementation of public policies in our maritime organizations. After creating schools and other institutions, for example, the drivers of vessels, captains, and we need to sensitize, and we need to inform, and also to interest women students in schools so that young women can integrate these organizations. We need to develop the same chance. Senegal has created many training centers for the staff in logistic and port management, and women are attending. That's why in Senegal, I take this as an example. We have the national school that train seafarers. We also have an aquaculture center. We have at the university and job, we have a department. We also have another school that train engineers, and also in logistic we also have the training of logistic, maritime and port activities. I'd like to say that at the level of the National Agents of Administration, many women have reached the top management administrator. At the National Marine, we have 15% of women. At the Dakar port, we also have some women who are at the seafarers. And also at the Center Tremar, which is a logistic port center. And I was the manager for 4 years. I can say in conclusion that that professional training in such and the networking are not sufficient. We need to add also the third point, which is the lobbying, because the lobbying can constitute the means to press our government, to push our government so that they can take into account this training, to have also the public policies. Through this lobbying, we can develop also a sensitization among our decision makers, and also to touch all level of population that can help us to improve this situation. So this will allow us to be heard and be seen. The sensitization, the government also has to increase the number of parliament members so that they can elaborate legislations that can allow women to reach. We know that the Muslim religions does not allow women to work, but we tried to meet religious leaders, and we sent some people to go and learn Quran so that they can know what God said about women. We have to involve artists and every kind of people because the objective is to arrive at the big level so that anyone can integrate to the professional organizations, unions, political parties, and so on. The lobbying is needed to have scholarships and develop the partnership to have a lot of women that can have higher school trainings to different schools, different universities that where other women cannot access. So that will help us. We have now 12 years. One institution is helping by training women in port activities and the management and other areas where traditionally only men worked. The lobbying is help us to apply the international convention because our governments, they are ready to sign to ratify the international convention, but the implementation is very difficult. Now, we pushed the government not only to ratify, but to implement the ratification. At the national level, the lobbying helped us to have some laws, some legislations of gender parity, gender equality, and we need some processing. 1 million of women entered into the street so that we can be heard. And if that law could not be voted in parliament, we could have not participated to the national elections which were coming. And fortunately, that act was elected in the parliament. So I can say that to avoid this disparity in our administration, these three axes we developed, namely networking, the professional trainings, and lobbying, I can say the integration of gender equality, it's not only around money. We need to fight with courage and commitment. And we cannot develop a country or a nation if we cannot say only men are working. No. Without women, we cannot realize many things. Even in the management of our country, we cannot neglect 50% of the population, which are women. In terms of stability, social stability, because we are at the center of communications, we are the one who unite the societies. We unite the families. The mobilization of women to fight climate change, the blue economy. So the role of women is very determinant. I can take the example of Dakar Port. I think 3-4 years, the port have many trees because women understood that we need to replant, to plant trees around the port so that we can have clean air to fight the climate change. I could have read all what I've read, but I'd like just to summarize these three axes. Let me thank you for listening to me.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Thank you. Madam has taken us through her presentation, highlighting on the importance of women in maritime association, and with particular reference to what her association has been doing, and the need for us to have training and capacity building for our women to enable them take up roles within the maritime sector. There's also the need for us to have policies that will support this agenda. and the many things that you have done to improve upon the women in maritime in Senegal. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Now we're moving on to throw our questions to our panelists who are well positioned. I want to be sure that I have everybody here. Is Womesa here? Winnie? Oh, great. You are here. So my first question will go to you. I know you are the chairperson of Womesa, and you are also a gender activist. So what would you consider key factors that would enhance the promotion of gender equality in the maritime sector? Yeah. I should take it again. All right. So I want to find out what you consider key factors that would enhance the promotion of gender equality in the maritime sector.
Probably this is why women don't get such jobs. It's taken me a minute to discover where to put on the mic. But thank you so much. It's glad to be here. So I'm the chairperson of Womesa Kenya. Just to be clear, it's Womesa Kenya, and my president is right on my left. Some of the key factors that we would consider necessary, I will not go to the details of what Womesa is, because I'm sure we have all been told in the various presentations that even the president made, and we are all member states of IMO, so by now we must appreciate and understand what Womesa is. So again, also I really thank the speakers that have gone before us, because they have made our work easier, and we are only going to be shortly repeating what they have already highlighted as some of the key issues that will promote the participation of women in the maritime sector. I'll start by beginning with the training and education opportunities, because it's a time where we do not want just women to be there, but we want professional women out there in the maritime industry, and women who actually have the technical expertise to handle the various aspects of the maritime sector. Again, in terms of what they have talked about, the policy initiatives and gender equality initiatives, we'd like to look at research, and we'll call upon organizations that are interested, for example, the WISTA and any other that may want to come on board, on the need for research and surveys on what women and the role of women in the industry. This will be able to assist with the policy development that we are talking about, not only in terms of the numbers, but also in terms of the quality and the actual impact that they bring into the industry, because sometimes we over-concentrate on the numbers and forget at what level do they come in, and what is the quality, and what impact do they bring into the industry. Then also there's need in terms of promoting to appreciate where we are and just continue building on the stones, and this will be able to work by just enabling us to appreciate the women who have gone before us and publicizing them and promoting the work that they have done. Last but not least, as I conclude, and the most passionate, which is the flagship of the Womesa initiative, is the mentorship and basically the networking. We are looking forward now to not only women networking amongst each other, and I believe that's why we are in this forum, where we are not only women, but all of us from both genders, to be able to just appreciate the need to have everybody on board in this gender discussion, and it not being addressed as a women-only issue. We also want to see, and I'm glad that this panel has some men, we want to see men championing women in the industry, not because of just because they are women, but because they are capable women who are out there. So it would be an interesting idea, and moving forward, probably just for this team to consider having the various heads of maritime administrations that are here, basically just take a personal reflection and commitment and see how many women do you promote in your organizations, and what better can you do in terms of mentoring them to ensure them to take to higher leadership positions and to grow and career advance in the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. That was very short and sweet. Very short and sweet. Straight to the point. Thank you. Thank you, Winnie. So my next question goes to Loveness Masuka. You are here. You are the Chief Director, Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure Development. So what policies are needed? What policies do you think are needed to support diversity And what has been your experience in advancing the policy from where you sit? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and a very good afternoon to you all. I would say the world over, I think there's been deliberate efforts in terms of women empowerment and various economic empowerment policies, initiatives. I would say, for example, in my country, the Constitution of Zimbabwe, specifically Section 17 and 56, and the Labor Relations Act, Chapter 28.1, speaks clearly on equal opportunities to everyone, removing the barriers that previously were existing. I would say women remains underrepresented, especially in male-dominated areas like the maritime sector and other STEM-related fields. There is need for everyone, including the governments, to create a conducive environment which allows women to take up this post. But for me, Madam Moderator, before I discuss a few policies that can enhance women participation in the maritime sector, for me, the big question, the elephant in the room is what are organizations doing in terms of ensuring that the set targets for gender diversity is met? Because what I've discovered is whether it's government, whether it's private companies or public sector entities, we do come up with various policies, initiatives, and strategies. But the first question is, do we have an actual action plan to do that? Why this is important? Because it will allow us to measure ourselves on how far we have gone. Now we are talking about moving some days, maybe 2030, 2050, because we have not been able to achieve because our targets, our strategies are not measurable. The other issue is, do we monitor the progress, and do we have champions within our organizations who are specifically targeted on ensuring that diversity is thriving and it's really measurable? I would say as long as we do not have these mechanisms in place, it will continue to remain a talk show and will not realize the full benefits of where we want to go and what we want to achieve. Now coming back to the questions that you have discussed, I would touch maybe also briefly, because I think the first speaker was almost like an all-rounder. She spoke a lot about the policies and other initiatives, but I will mention just a few. For any meaningful organization, I think we need to have a policy which clearly states zero tolerance to discrimination and harassment. This is very crucial, not just for the maritime sector. And what should be contained in that should be how then do you protect the victims when they report such kind of harassment or discrimination? And the other issue is, are there clearly outlined procedures on how you handle such issues? Because sometimes we just give a policy statement to say zero tolerance to discrimination, to harassment, but what are the consequences? How are you going to ensure that if there is a violation, action is going to be taken, and also by whom? The other issue, I think let's also talk about the policy to do with career development and promotion, where all employees should be treated equally and their performance evaluated objectively, and also rewarding and promotion must be based on performance, not on the gender. Coupled with that, let's also maybe look at the recruitment and hiring policies, where advertising, when we are advertising for our posts, we should be able to make sure that we remove, we should be able to make sure that we do blind hiring where we don't emphasize the gender, or even using strong terms like masculine terms, like which sort of shuts down ladies from applying for that job because they may feel that they don't have the physical power to be able to undertake that specific job. And also our job description should be all-inclusive when we are advertising, and we can even go a step further to target underrepresented entities. Sometimes we have less women having access to these adverts by virtue of their geographical location. So we must make some concerted efforts to make sure that we reach every corner of the country or the area where the job is being advertised for. We can also look at training and development. I think the first speaker spoke at length on that, but I will maybe in this instance focus on diversity and inclusion awareness for our staff. I think it is common knowledge that most organizations do not have this expertise, so I will recommend some either mentoring or exchange programs or inviting guest speakers for such workshops so that everyone is fully aware of what they're expected to be doing. The other issue, we can also have policies which speaks to accessibility and accommodation, where we are looking at softer issues like safety, accommodation, and tools of trade which supports women in technical fields. Inclusion and respect should also be a key factor when we are drafting diversity policies, where we should embrace different cultural dynamics within us. I'll give for an example, an organization may observe some cultural events or some cultural holidays. For instance, I'll just take Christianity and versus Islamic. So we should be able to ensure that everyone is recognized and their cultural diversity is key, because in our differences, we are going to have a common goal. Lastly, if we need to make sure that our gender is well balanced, we must look at the compensation and pay benefits so that there are no differences. A clear commitment to equal pay for equal job should be observed by the company. And this should not, like I said earlier on, this should not be like policy statements, but they should be seen to have been done correctly, and this should be communicated at all levels within the organization. In conclusion, Madam Moderator, I would say working women have special challenges by virtue of their gender roles in society. Hence, I would say there's need for more research in an attempt to unveil many socio-economic and organizational barriers that limit women's career entity and which limits women's career in entry and advancement, especially in the maritime sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Loveness. I'm sure after this there will be room for people to also give some contribution from the floor. So the next question goes to Mr. Bakay Diop from the Senegal Maritime Authority. Merci. I wish I could speak the French, but what roles can international and regional bodies play in supporting women in the maritime sector? What role can international and regional bodies play in supporting women in the maritime sector? Merci.
Allô. Merci beaucoup. Je vous remercie d'abord en fait pour votre invitation. Je me présente, c'est pas Bakay Diop, mais c'est Bekay Diop, ouais, directeur général de l'Agence nationale des affaires maritimes du Sénégal. Alors donc le rôle des organismes régionaux et internationaux qu'il peut jouer pour favoriser donc l'intégration
to improve the integration of women in the maritime sector. I'd like to say that the example of Senegal, I can go a bit far. I can go to the parliament of Senegal. Just some weeks we had 165 women as the Senegal parliament, we have 50% of women and 50% of men. So before that, it was only the majority were men. Now, at the regional level, we can inspire from there and to incite stakeholders to hire women because of their work. It's something good. This is one. Secondly, at the regional level, we have to contextualize math issues. Africa is not Europe. We have our traditions, our means of living. Why not to use in quarters, in street, in region, villages, to try to talk with our parents? You know, we are the societies, some society are patriarchals or matrimonials. So we need to explain why we need those children and how the children must be directed. We need to localize what is trainings and also information that we can give at the level of village and street. So this can favor I can say this can favor the maritime sector because we do not have a lot of women even in Senegal. So we can say when I am the director at ANAM, but in our direction, the half of directors are women. Even the director of operation is a woman. The director of maritime safety is a woman. Director of transport is a woman. So where we are, men, it's we have a bit few women who are inspectors. And we need some ship, for example, where we can go to fish. There we do not have a lot of women. It's not a barrier, but we can unblock at the regional level is that we also have at the regulatory level, no matter African Union or European Union, we have some directors at the European Union, which is discrimination is not allowed. So also even at the maritime level, it can be applied. At African level, we say, we have the blue ocean of 2020. The blue ocean 2020 was to favor the diversity of employment, to favor the sharing of employment in maritime level. At the international level, we also have some programs, Women and Maritime Autonomy, Initiative FAR, which target to integrate women in maritime sector. And we need to vulgarize all of these initiatives and laws. We have the policies of diversities. We have to put in place national regulatories. And we have to emphasize, if everyone update himself on that, I think we can bring or take women to integrate in the maritime sector. Thank you very much for listening.
I got it. Thank you, Mr. Diop. Merci beaucoup, Mr. Diop. Yeah. now, our last question goes to Mr. Omingo. You are with the IMO, and you were once the former Director General of the Kenya Maritime Authority. So, what are some of the initiatives being implemented by the IMO to improve women participation in maritime? And how can member states support IMO in this initiative? Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm happy to see you and welcome you to our region. A lot has been spoken, and I want to say that the presenters and the other panelists have made very good and productive contribution to this debate that we are having. One immediate response to the question of what IMO has done to support the women participation in the maritime sector comes directly in the organization of this forum. I was the chair of the planning committee, and the Director General insisted that he will not come if in any of these teams that we are setting up, we don't put women. So our initial proposals on the potential speakers and the panelists was heavily improved upon. We had ladies, but it was heavily improved upon. And you have seen now the outcome of including ladies in such kind of an arrangements. The diversity and the talents that many of them have and are exposing here is just showing what they can do within the maritime sector. It is in that light of recognizing the talents that diversity brings in our various institutions and the international forums, and more so particularly in the maritime sector, that IMO is very deliberate in terms of promoting so that we can get the full talents and potential that diversity brings. And from that perspective, they are very, very active in capacity building. It's critical that we don't just let them hold those positions because they are ladies, but they qualify. And they have proved themselves to be very capable, even in holding very senior positions within the international framework in the maritime sector, in the African Union, even in the, and I've seen them, how they are playing a very, very important role. So capacity building is very key in terms of what IMO has done to promote ladies within the maritime sector. They have done excelling very well. IMO, through the setting up, through those programs that they have set up, like the one that has brought in UMESA, the WIMSA, and many other organizations, are very deliberate efforts that they are undertaking to bring them up so that they can be able to actively participate within the sector. This sector, as been pointed out by the speakers, has been dominated by men, and we agree that. But it's also a very good time to be a lady now, because of the efforts that are being made to bring the ladies to join the sector. In terms of, from the support that IMO has given to WIMSA, and UMESA and other organizations all over the world, we have seen UMESA coming very, very strongly to do the advocacy, to do the awareness creation. When we had our first qualified ladies as pilots and marine engineers in the sector, UMESA organized a widespread promotion of maritime training skills in schools. And from that effort, we have seen many ladies coming up and recognizing the significance of their full participation in the maritime sector. And thus we commend IMO for giving such supports, and we foresee them doing that in future. We have seen IMO encouraging ladies to take leadership roles, even within the institution itself. They are very conscious of this, and we have seen them encouraging, even in the adverts that they are making, they encourage ladies to come up. So, to ladies in the room and the ones who are listening, there's no more complaining. The door is wide open for you to come in. The training opportunities which are given, please exploit them and train yourselves. We have seen the resilience of ladies within the maritime sector. And that I remember the ASA president, Madam Fumni. She has been consistent in as African ship owners coming together and then joining hands to see how we can help one another. And that can only come from a lady, you know. Men give up very fast. But ladies are very persistent, and they'll see the dreams, how these things started. We have had the input of ladies, their talents is now bringing us together to be able to chat this baby as we look forward to AMA growing stronger and being supported. What I must say, the administrations are the hands of IMO on the ground. They deal with the issues to do with all the areas that IMO is handling. They deal with the policy issues on the ground. The gender promotion, they deal with that on the ground. So by strengthening AMA and bringing ladies on board to utilize their talents that we have, we are seeing a lot of compliance that IMO is advocating within the maritime sector. We are seeing investments coming in, and we look forward to ladies coming up and supporting us in these initiatives so that we become a strong institution. We are very happy that the lady who came from the African Union, the person who came from the African Union and made a fantastic presentation and the readiness, there she is. It's a lady. And you've seen from her passion and articulation, we are seeing a lot of seeds which are being planted to bring us together as a continent and participate within the maritime sector. So they spoke all the other issues that are marked in my points in terms of bringing the ladies on board. So Silva, I'll just conclude by saying that there is a silver lining on the horizon. Is it a silver lining on the horizon or a lining on the silver? I'm seeing silver lining on the horizon in terms of ladies. Let us accept them. Let us open ways on how to bring them on board. Institutions that are maritime, let them declare publicly to what extent have they engaged their ladies. Have they met the diversity criteria which need to be set up in the policy, in the regulations? And my fellow panelists talked about the monitoring. There must be data that speaks of this year, what percentage of ladies do we have in our various institutions? Let us be proud to declare that in my institution, this is percentage that I have, and I've been growing for a number of periods. And you have seen even the IMO is giving these figures, which are showing a good promotion, and we look forward to this trend being picked up and taken up so that we can really get the full talents of what ladies are bringing into the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Omingo. You never disappoint. Very impressive. Yeah, thank you for the support that IMO is giving us. And before, I know we have some role models here. We have some mentors in our midst. We have some supporters, and we'd like to hear a word or two from some of them. But before I give out the floor. Okay. After me. I just wanted to highlight, give some key takeaways that we have picked up from this gathering, And I know a lot has been said, but what cuts across here is that gender stereotyping is still an issue. From the statistics that have been given, it shows that we need to do more. I know a lot is being done, to get us to where we are, but we still have room to do more. And the data that we have shows that there's room for improvement. We need to work harder. And it's important that this time we have data to even support whatever stance we take. So we continue to build on the data. This relationship between IMO, WISTA, and the women's should be encouraged so that we can gather more data to talk more to the issues that we need support on. It's also important that training and capacity building is key. From all that has been said, we cannot take up the roles within the industry when we don't have the requisite training or capacity building. So we need support in this area. If scholarships can be given to women in the various sectors, the maritime administrations, the agencies, and the ministries, if some funding can be made to intentional. We have to be intentional about this. We need to make sure that the proper training are given to the women so that they can take up the role. And for me, this is very key. We also need mentorship we need role models. You know, sometimes when we see our women in certain positions, it encourages us so that the younger generation can tell that, yes, if this lady is there, then it means I can also get there. I know the men are doing a lot for us, but we are best placed to speak the language that the younger generation, you know, can speak to. And what is more important here is the policy, the laws and the policies. We talked about the AU Maritime and Transport Charter that we have. But I heard somewhere along the line that some countries have ratified, they haven't domesticated it and all that. These are things that we need to advocate for. The various ladies in the various institutions and agencies. I know most of you are lawyers here. These are things that we need to advocate and push forward for. Ghana, it has taken us 30 years, but we finally got our affirmative action law passed this year. The next thing is implementation. You know, so we have the policies. Let's follow through and make sure that they are well implemented. This is very key. I know a lot have been said. We've picked up a lot, but these are the things. And we need the support of the various organizations, the agencies in the various countries. We need the support to champion the cause of the various women. You know, sometimes programs want to go to the schools, want to talk to the younger generation, and yet the funding is not there. We need your support to be
us forward. But now, when opportunities are out there, we step forward. Because if you wait for somebody to pick you up, it might waste time. And you'll find that the men, because they are used to it, they just jump on. So for me, my encouragement to all ladies, I'm saying, it's our time. The processes are there. The documents, the regulations, the policies are there. Can we just come up and say, this is the opportunity, we step in and don't wait to be picked up? I think that is what I'm taking for myself, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's inspiring. Yes, we want to hear from a gentleman too. Yeah, he's over there. Yeah, thank you.
That was a healthy dose of inspiration.
Yeah.
It certainly was. Huh? Our hands again, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. What I want to say sometimes is something the women forgot. I want just to insert some advice. Bon, I present myself. I am Captain Kingumba. I am resident in South Africa. I am as a visitor. What I saw in what we can say, only two things. There are some countries until now, there are strong women, but there is no any training. Please extend your audit to those countries. Try also to give a chance to those women to follow you. Secondly, SOLAS. I think when they are building vessels, they don't predict some additional accommodation for women. I witnessed last week the same problem. One lady was looking a job, but it was in fishing industry. She went there and she found that the man was working almost naked. She ran away. That is some challenge I wish the women to check on, because the future is changing. They have to find out how to clean the area where they are wishing to come. That is what I want to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I can see a hand over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Juliet Watiko Nyerere. I am a maritime consultant, private sector, but I'm here as a member of WOMESA. I have one contribution. It's not a question. It is a contribution regarding our youth, young ladies who are graduating from maritime institutions. I worked as a part-time instructor also in the maritime institutions here in Tanzania. So I know there are some challenges for some employment, especially for our youth. Okay, we give them education, and I really commend IMO for the capacity building program that is offering to promote the gender balance. But the challenge of unemployment, you have youth who have graduated with very flying colors, but they cannot get employment. And this I'm saying is not just I'm blaming my government that why can't all these youth get employment, because I know the government through its maritime firms like TPA and other governments, of course, is doing very well in trying to accommodate students once they get. But my suggestion is to IMO. If there is, I know it's doing so much, so well, but if there is any plans, like maybe to have some strategic plan to employ, to have some maybe exchange programs, if they can discuss with some governments, developing governments, to have some programs like exchange programs for especially students who finish their education in the maritime industry with flying colors, so they can go maybe to some countries like Netherlands or other countries with very firm foundation in the maritime sector, maybe as interns for a 3-year program, then they come back home. This will help them to improve, to have resilience, and to develop them, not just personal development, but even when they come back from their country to their country, they are going to develop as well. And we know youth are everything. We have to prepare them. We have to make sure when we're not here, because we're here, but tomorrow we're not there. The maritime industry has to go forward. And we have to prepare our youth for them to be able not only to train them, but also to make sure they get employment, because this is a professional industry. So it has, once you're educating them, it means they have also to be employed. So this is my contribution for IMO. If there is any strategy that can be looked in the future to engage even the government for the exchange programs for our youth who are graduating with flying colors, but they have nowhere to go. Because I have some examples. I know some students, they have graduated, and some of them, they find employment. They cannot be able to get employed. You find them doing like, the ladies, oh, I'm selling handbags nowadays, or some of them, I don't know, just doing some petty business. But is this the goal? That you educate somebody, a young youth, and you expect the youth to be in the industry, to be somewhere, like most of them, many people I see here, but we have to do something. And I think IMO, if that can be taken as a point, well, thank you so much. This is just my contribution. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I think you better assume the podium, as your time is up anyway.
I'd like to thank all of you, especially my presenters, Dr. Davida Mandanda and Ms. Batuara Kene, for their presentation. Very good job done. And I also like to thank my panelists for the wonderful, invaluable information that we've received from you. So these are Winnie, Omingo, Loveless, and then I haven't left anyone out. Let me see. Yeah, thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, let's give them Huge. Thank you. I'm so grateful to you for your attention.
I think since we're going to lunch, why don't we put our hands together louder to this panel? Thank you for taking us to lunch. You've nourished us. And may I please request the first session players yesterday who did carbonization, you didn't get a chance to take a picture. And so you'll get a chance as well. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have finalized all the sessions. And the final one that remains, which I am going to request, I will even beg and go down on my knee, is after we've had lunch, please let's return back into the room. So the carbonization sessions, please feel free to come up. Please come back.